Morning. I'm an addict named Liz.
Hey, Liz.
I'm from the Marietta area, and my clean date is August 12th, 2014. I'm grateful to be here today, and thank you to the committee for allowing Rodney and myself to be here to speak to you guys this morning. I kind of jumped all over the opportunity to speak on Awakening of the Spirit because my love for Narcotics Anonymous runs so deep within me that that was one of the greatest gifts that recovery and the steps has given me, is getting in touch with my spiritual person that is in me, not just my disease. I wanted to read something out of our basic text about what a spiritual awakening is. It says, as we grow spiritually, we become attuned to our feelings and our purpose in life. By loving ourselves, we become able to truly love others. This is a spiritual awakening that comes as a result of living this program. We find ourselves daring to care and love. And that is exactly what Narcotics Anonymous and the 12 Steps has given me. I kind of wanted to go through how each one of the steps awoke my spirit and the process that went through for me. I knew that I was an addict for a really long time. I always knew that something about me was different. I was always the last person using at a party, I was always the one that wanted to keep going, and all my friends were we gotta go to sleep. I'm we're just starting. I always felt like I was different than every social group interaction, people that I was with growing up. I always felt like I was separate in some way. At the end of my relapse, I came into Narcotics Anonymous and I shortly went back out. And when I came back and made it back, I had that gift of desperation. The last time that I used before I got clean, I really believe that was when my spirit started to awake. It was so broken and open and raw that I knew that was the last time I was going to use. I was looking myself, I was in a hotel room looking myself in the mirror, and something in me, it was just this is the last time you're ever going to use, And I didn't know what that looked like, and I didn't know what that was going to carry me to. In a short few hours, I was arrested, and, shortly after getting out of jail, I came back to the rooms. And so, I like to say that, because of the steps, it started with my spiritual awakening, but for me, my experience, it started long before that. I've always had a spirit in me that I learned, as from the time I was a child, that innocent, pure, just unconditional love, that was in me, but so was the disease of addiction. And so, as a kid, I would, lie to you and manipulate, and I didn't even really have a conscious awareness that, that's what I was doing. It was just my disease kind of trying to take over my spirit at a young age. Coming into the rooms, I was broken, I was really raw, and just, I was ready to do whatever you guys told me to do. If somebody told me to lick the paint off the walls or stand on my head and drink a glass of water, I was going to do that because I just didn't want to use anymore. I was so done with that lifestyle and the way that I had lived for so long that I was willing to do anything. And that started with me going to 90 meetings in 90 days. I probably went to more meetings than just 90 meetings because when I got clean this time, I didn't have a job, I didn't have a car, I didn't have anything really, I didn't have any responsibilities, I didn't have anything to do other than to engulf myself in the program and the fellowship. And then I got a sponsor and started working steps. I very quickly got into step work because I knew that my solution was there from coming in prior and listening to you guys talk about how the solution's in the steps and da-da-da-da-da, and I very willingly tried to look for similarities in everybody and every person that I interacted with in meetings. And so going over a first step, it was, my spirit had already awoken a little bit. I was starting to see that maybe I could do this by doing the 90 meetings in 90 days and watching people who were there before I had come in and relapse still be there in the rooms. I was okay, well, maybe something about this is working. I got very engulfed in a first step. I think it took me 2 months. I was thorough, and by admitting that I was powerless over my addiction, that gave me like that first kind of glimmer of freedom. You know, that although I wasn't responsible for my disease, that I did and am responsible for my recovery. That allowed me to see that like there was hope, that I didn't have to keep doing the things that I was doing in active addiction in recovery in the rooms. I did because that's all I knew, but admitting that like powerlessness and surrendering to what I didn't know at the time kind of gave me like, that's where my pink cloud started, was like, okay, you know. And in my head I was like, okay, so I'm powerless, meaning like nothing is my fault, right? like because I'm not using anymore, like I can come into the rooms and be crazy still and it won't be my fault, you know. And so getting into step 2, you know, like being restored to sanity was like, no, like you are responsible for not just your recovery, but your actions and your behavior, and it's okay. People in here loved me anyways, and despite of myself. But that thought process and that work in the second step allowed me to see that like, okay, I'm powerless. Well, what is out there? You know, what is out there that can be in control or guide me or whatever? And then very quickly getting into a third step, it was like a power greater than yourself that's loving and caring and greater than you. You know, and on some days, I believe my sponsor will remind me all the time, like, you are not your higher power. You know, like, let your higher power do the work in you. And very early on in my recovery, things happened that were direct, like, correspondence to my spiritual awakening. I got out of jail. I said I went to jail. I got out of jail with, like, nothing except the clothes on my back. And in a very short time, like, I had a job, I had a car, I had a cell phone, I had all the materialistic things, but I also had a sense of self-worth very early on. That, okay, like, just because I messed up all these years of my life and I'm struggling to deal with the consequences of my behavior and active addiction, I can still stay clean through that. You know, I can still stay clean. I'm staying clean. I had a huge spiritual awakening. I was getting ready to go into a 4th step, and I had maybe 4.5 months clean, and I went to court for a case that I had open, and, you know, it was a struggle, like, getting to do all the things that they wanted me to do for this case. You know, I had to go to anger management classes, I had to do drug tests every month, I had to report to a counselor, and they had extended my court date. And I went into court, this was like the 2nd court date, and they were like, you have to have all of this stuff completed if we're going to clear your case, you know, if we're going to close this case. And I go in there and I didn't have everything completed. And I remember just praying, you know, I was in the middle of the 3rd step at that time. I remember just praying to whatever, I didn't know what my higher power was, but I just remember asking it to, like, guide me in that moment, you know, like, please, like, I did the best that I could, you know, like, it's difficult, I'm trying, and I still had this, like, built-in system in me that I was going to fail, that I was going to go to jail because I didn't do what I was supposed to do, you know, and that everything, like the sky is falling mentality. And I went in there, and I was the last person that they called, and Rodney was actually sitting in the courtroom with me and my sponsor at the time, and we sat there for like 2 hours, and they called me up there, and they were like, your case is closed, have a good day, you know. And I could just remember, like, my connection to my higher power in that very moment in that courtroom was like, I felt it inside of me, you know. I felt my spirit kind of like open up a little bit, like, okay, maybe this is possible. Maybe there is something greater than me that's loving me, that will take care of me, despite of like what this court system told me or what you guys told me would happen. Like, that was a miracle to me, that I didn't do what I was supposed to do, and I still got a result that was going to help me. In a 4th step, like, that was where a lot more I got down to the exact nature of why I do the things I do, you know, from the trauma as a child to being picked on growing up to family issues. Like, I got to see me in a 4th step, which was really challenging for me, to, like, take responsibility, you know, and realize that that I was the cause of majority of my problems, you know, and that I could also be my solution in those things. I didn't think that that was possible because I had never lived it before. But going over a fifth step with my sponsor and sitting there, I remember she like took off work and we sat in her living room for probably 6 hours or longer doing my fifth step. And at the end of it, she was like, okay, is there anything else? You know, and I've heard people share about it, and I heard people share about it before I experienced it, but it was like everything that I had let go in that like place, that spiritual place, was just accepted. You know, like all the fear and built up anxiety and all like, you know, my disease ridden in my spirit, that was like, you know, she's gonna kick you out of her house. She's not gonna want to talk to you anymore after you share these things, you know, like all of that was kind of like washed away with her acceptance and love. Like that's what she presented me with, was just love. And going into a sixth step, I realized that like a lot of my defects of character revolve around me being a victim, you know, because I was a victim as a child, you know, when my spirit was pure and clean and just loving, and I was, you know, I lived through some trauma and was a victim, and I carried that through my entire active addiction. And for the sixth step for me, it was like I had to become entirely ready, and I don't know if anyone has experience with this, but like defects of character were just like all over the place, and it was very hard to practice spirituality and be loving and be open-minded and willing to do anything when I saw me all over the place. You know, it was like I was almost in self-destruct mode with close to 18 months clean, and I wanted to escape, but I had people love me through that also. And what that did for my spirit was it allowed me to see that I was human and I was fallible and it was okay. You know, that I wasn't just an addict, that I wasn't just, you know, a coworker or a daughter, that I have some things about me that I could work on. You know, in active addiction, I didn't think that everything was your fault and like you have to be where I am or you're against me, you know, and it really gave me a sense of like, it like catapulted me into 7 through 12, and that's kind of where my spirit in 1 through 5 had like started opening up a little bit, but after I did 6 and then went into 7, I had that switch. It talks about in our basic text that it's kind of like the what will set the tone for the rest of our recovery. You know, it's the change, the huge change that we go through, and I experienced that. And then 7, humbly asking him to remove my shortcomings, that took a while. And it's still to this day, I have to ask that. All of the steps I've worked, I have to apply them in my life, like, day to day. I had to be, like, humiliated by my defects to get there. And it was okay because of that 3rd step and that trust that I had established with that higher power, and then the 4th and 5th, like, it gave me, even though like I felt chaotic and I wanted to run, it gave me a sense of hope still, you know, that I could stay clean through this and that like it was going to be okay. And when 8 came around, I was more than willing to be done with 6 and 7. And it was like that peace that came over me. And I was willing to write a list of everyone that I had harmed, and how that awoke my spirit was it was showing me that I could take responsibility for the things that I had done, and it was going to be all right. It gave me a sense of self-worth to know that I could take responsibility for those things, you know, that it was okay to write down on paper and share with my sponsor that I had caused harm to other people. You know, I had stolen money from people that were close to me. I had wronged institutions and establishments that I had been in. And in the 9th step, when I went to make my first amends, I remember, like, I had stolen gas from this gas station when you didn't have to pay for gas. You know, you could just pump it, and then they trusted you to be a good person and go in and pay for it. And I was using, and I had gone up to the pump and stolen the gas and left, and I went back to that same gas station, and it was something that at that time in my recovery and at the place I was at, I was like, I could do this. This is a simple financial amends that I can start with to make, because I have huge financial amends to make. And I go into the gas station and I'm like, hey, my sponsor was like, just tell them that you found the money on the ground outside. And I'm like, you want me to lie, make amends? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. She's like, just go in there. You don't have to say you're a recovering addict. You don't have to go in there and give them some spiel and make it about you. You know, just go in there and hand them the money and leave. And I walked in there and I did just that. Like, I handed the guy the money. I was like, here, man, found this on the ground. And I like turned and like quickly ran out because he was like, wait, like, what are you giving me this money for? You know, like, let's split the money. Let's like, and I was like, no, you don't understand. Like, you have to take this money. Like, you have to keep the money and take it, you know. And I like left, and he came out and he gave me half of the money back. And I had a friend with me at the time, and I was just like, I can't take it. So they took it. But I was just like, I can't, you know. But what that did for me and where I was at in my recovery is it showed me that even when I take responsibility for my wrongdoings, people aren't going to necessarily shun me. You know, I am not like the scum of the earth. And that allowed me to kind of balance out spiritually. That allowed me to see that, like, I'm good and I'm bad, and I have things I can work on, and I have things that really, you know, can improve on a day-to-day basis. And all that did was bring me closer to the God of my understanding and allowed me to love you guys more. I had, like, a newfound love for myself in time where it was okay for me to admit things that I did wrong and do the opposite or behavior that would kind of help it. You know, I could choose to do something different. I didn't have to choose to live that same way anymore. And then going into 10, like that was an experience. I had to write on a 10-step in our sponsorship family. We have to do a 10-step every day for 30 days. And I'm so hard-headed and stubborn that I was like, I'm going to be the only one in our sponsorship family that doesn't have to start over. You know, my sponsor was like, everyone starts over, give yourself a break, it's okay. I was like, nope. I'm not going to be the one that starts over. And I didn't, you know, because by this point I had enough experience to know that I could stay clean and I could live through uncomfortable, icky, not so loving feelings and still have a spiritual connection. Still be awake enough to know that I don't have to treat you poorly just because I feel poorly about myself. And know that, like, on a day-to-day basis, if I just surrender and I let go a little bit and I ask for help, like, I'll be okay. And so going into 10, like, it was a lot, but I did it, you know. It was a lot every day, answering all those questions. And I remember I was traveling and I almost, like, had to start over. It was like 2 in the morning, and I think I was out of condition. And the guy that I was with, he was like, did you do your 10-step today? And I was like, shit. You know, like, I didn't, you know, and I almost had to start over, so I pulled my phone out and did it. And when I went to my sponsor to tell her, like, okay, my 30 days is up, she was like, that's great, you know, like, how do you feel, you know? And I was like, well, I've been at peace a lot, you know, I've been at peace being able to honestly examine where I've been every day in the 24 hours just for today. You know, most days I'm actually doing the Living the Program IP right now. Most days I do pretty well. And throughout the day, my disease will have me thinking, like, you're doing awful, you shouldn't have done that. But, like, changing that perspective to, hey, like, no, I didn't cause harm to anyone today. There really wasn't anything that I did today that I didn't want to do or left undone. You know, I did pretty well today. It gives me that sense of, like, I don't know, wholeness, self-respect, self-worth that I had been working towards in 1 through 9. And in 11, seeking through prayer meditation for me to become, you know, knowledge of God's will for me. Like, that is something I do daily. I went to the beach last night to pray and to meditate, and it was more of a meditation, you know. Most days I take time in the morning to meditate. I wake up early. I wake up like 4 hours before I have to be at work. And I'll read the Just for Today, and I'll lay and I'll listen. And last night I was just on the beach, like, weeping, like, sobbing, full of gratitude that I get to be here, that I'm clean, that I have the things that I have, that I am the person that I am today, that I actually love the person that I am today. I used to hear people share about that in meetings, and I'd be like, I'll never have that. I don't know what that feels like, you know? And I do today. And that was like the true, like the purest form of my spirit awakening, getting in touch with me, you know, and knowing that it was okay to love me on any given day, and in turn that allowed me to do a 12 and carry the message and love you for where you're at, you know, have some empathy and compassion that I don't know what you're struggling with, but I can still love you regardless, you know. And it really changed in 10, 11, and 12 from like an I thing to a we thing for me, you know. And today, like, that is my focus, like common welfare, me being a member of this fellowship, you know, giving back what was freely given to me, you know, keeping that conscious contact, doing my best to follow my higher power's guidance. I don't do it all the time, but one thing that my higher power told me last night was that, like, I'm okay, and I'm gonna be okay, spiritually, you know. This has been a really beautiful process for me, and like, I am an addict, and I want more, so I am going to keep coming back, and thank you for allowing me to share.
Thank you.
I'm an addict. My name's Rodney.
Hey, Rodney.
Hey. So it's really like an honor to sit with these two women right here. I've known both of them from very early in their recovery. You know, I love and respect both of them, and they both know how to carry a message. And I don't know. I'm really honored to be sitting with these two women. So anyway, like, it's awakening to the spirit. Well, I'm just going to say, like, I guess for me, where I find an awakening of spirit is, it's kind of metaphorically, like when I am beside myself, and I have the awareness that I'm by myself, beside myself, and I see actions happening, and somehow or another the principles of this program interfere with those actions or whatever's going on with me sitting beside myself, and somehow the ultimate thing that comes out of it is love and peace. And sometimes I'm probably going to get emotional just because that's what I do. I don't know why. Like, when I was doing dope, I didn't care about getting emotional or crying or nothing. You know, I just wanted to use somebody else, get my drugs, and be on my way. And, you know, getting emotional and crying and, like, feeling my feelings, hell no. And, you know, that's a reality for me today. So, you know, when I got clean, I didn't know what the hell was in store for me for the rest of my life. I had no idea what was fixing to happen. I just knew that things were happening different. You know, people were different to me. Like, I had went to treatment, and, you know, one of the first profound things that happened to me was when I went to treatment, and, like, I was sitting there, you know, terrified of what was actually happening. And they said, once you put your stuff in your room and all that, then you can go to the smoke deck and have a cigarette. And so I did that, and, you know, I unloaded my stuff in treatment, and I sat there and I just cried. I'm like, how did I get here? What's going on? Why? What is it? You know? And it was just so much was happening right then. And I just went out on the smoke deck and I was smoking, and which I don't do anymore. That's great. Oh, and I forgot to say, I'm from the Marietta area. My clean date is 9/25/12. And so I'm out there on that smoke deck, and all the guys in treatment come out of the one room, and they come up to me, and I'm terrified. Like, these guys are coming at me, and when they get there, they hold out their hand, and they're like, "Hey, man, what's your name? Who are you? What's going on with you?" I'm like, "Whoa!" Like, these people actually care about me, on a level like I had no idea, had no understanding of why the hell you really care about me. But it was amazing, and I don't know, that was just a really profound moment for me to realize that something else was happening in my life, at this time. And so I got out of treatment, and, I'm trying to figure out, why I'm so scared out of treatment, and still really, scared at the world, scared from the world, I started going to NA meetings immediately out of treatment because that's what they told me to do, and I read something in a basic text that said that it was in chapter 5. And it said that I needed to change my way to the narcotics and way of life. And it was talking about my attitude. And, that's one of the main things that I can identify with daily, is my attitude and how I have to surrender and be humble with it. Like, it comes at me like no other force in this world to control me. And sometimes I don't know what to do with it. Like, my attitude, it's that little voice inside of my head that has this way of just talking to me in this demented demon voice, but so calm and collective, that's got me. And God for the principles and the steps, man. Because without that, that's what gives me the fuel and the energy and the hope that I don't have to sit and listen to that voice. This has been a very difficult year for me. Like, actually leading from like the end of last year into this year. Like, in my recovery today, like, I don't know, it's becoming a reality. Like, it's real. Not like it's been a fantasy for the first 4.5 years or so, but it's just different. Like, there's a new reality to my recovery today. And it just seems like for the, 3.5 months or so, like, just so much stuff has been tugging at my recovery, tugging at me. And it's like testing. But, all it is me fighting my recovery. That's all it is. And I'm seeing things in my life that are happening. And I'm just going to share some of those things because, experience, strength, and hope, man, there's nothing better than that. And, I think in all of it there is a spiritual awakening of the spirit, because my spirit sometimes is dull. It's dumb and it's dull and it's in a closet and it wants to get out. It's me that's got the key and it's got it locked. And I don't know, like I travel around to a lot of different areas. You know, I get asphalt recovery because my ass needs it. And so I know a lot of people in a lot of areas. And I was at a meeting, and I really don't want to share this. And so, you know, after the meeting, I sat out and I was talking to this woman. And, did I mention that like awareness is like a really big thing today? And so, anyway, she was like saying, like, you know, it's okay if we go back to my house and, like, you know, whatever. And, you know, I mean, I'm all about that. You know, that's fun and games and fun and all. And, like, that's really cool. Like, but she was married. And, like, I have principles today. And that fucking sucks. But that's not what really went on. What really went on was in my head, like, oh, I got this. I can control her. I can manipulate her. You know, what I can do afterwards, like, you know, any type of extortion from this person, blackmail, that's the sick shit that went on in my head. Not just a little bit of fun that I might could have had. You know? So, yeah, I pretty much packed my shit and I got in my car and I left. You know, that was an awakening of the spirit because the principles worked in my fucking life. And I drove on down the road and I cried and I was like, what the hell am I doing? Why? Like, I was so confused. The self-loathing kicked in and, like, why? You know, I just could not figure out what just happened. You know, recovery is like that. Like, it happens, it works for me when I don't know how to work it. You know, the principles, because I've read, I've written, and I've understood, and, like, it happens today. And it's scary sometimes, you know, because, like, it shuts that voice down and actually prayer and meditation take over, and I don't even know what happens really. I can't explain that. It's recovery. It's doing the right thing for the right reason, you know, and not wanting anybody else's approval for any of it, not needing it. So, something happened last year. Actually, when I was at 18 months, my ex-wife was murdered from this disease, in the mix of this disease. One of the hardest things I've ever had to do in recovery was tell my daughter that her mom had died. And I still cannot talk about it without being emotional because it's just so much. And I'll probably feel it for a really long time. But she screamed for 20 minutes. And that was the hardest thing to get through. And last year, about mid-year, somewhere, I don't know where, when, or what, but like, I was coming to the grips of finally getting to the position where I needed to deal with the feelings about the person that I felt pulled the trigger, because it's a convoluted old thing, but like, with the whole death. And I wanted to drive back to Louisiana, and I wanted to find this guy, and I wanted to kill him. Because it finally clicked in my mind that I needed to do something about this. I finally started feeling the emotions and the feelings about, wait a minute, you're the one that did that. And, I talked to my sponsor. That was really all I could do. Because all I wanted to do was just go kill this person. And I've never done that in my life. But the anger, the resentment was so great that I just couldn't deal with it by myself. And, me and my sponsor went to the shooting range and threw some lead down the range. And, I really imagined that person being at that target. And that was a reality. That was painful. And I forgave that. Only because I forgive myself for so many things that I have done. Like, I've got 6 kids. My first 4 kids. After my first wife got remarried, I gave up the rights to those kids so I didn't have to pay child support, so I could have the money for dope. Nobody in recovery does that. Nobody in recovery is going to do that if they're working a program. But in active addiction, that happens all the time. We give up. And a couple years ago, I had to do some financial paperwork, and I was digging through a lot of files and stuff because of my ex-wife's death. And I came across some letters that she had just written to my daughter. She died in June. These were written in May. A month before she had passed away. And I knew I needed to tell my daughter about these letters and give them to her. And that was a struggle because, I knew the impact that it had on her when she found out of her mother's passing. And, I'm not the parent. I don't know how to do this. I've screwed up the first 4. The second 2, I'm struggling. I don't know how to be a parent. I don't know how to do this. And I prayed, please, God, help me be able to understand how to present this to my daughter. And for, 2 or 3 weeks, that struggle went on. And constant praying and talking to my sponsor, and just finally I was getting ready to go to a meeting. I let go. I finally let go. And I was getting ready to go to a meeting, and I always go knock on her door, and I'll go kiss her and on her head and tell her goodbye and tell her I love her, and I'll go off to my meeting. I know to do that. I can do that as a parent. I'm learning to be a parent, really. And she was crying, sitting on her bed crying. And so I sat down beside her and I said, "What's wrong?" And she said, "I miss Mama." And I said, "I know, I do too." And that was my moment of clarity. That was right there. That was an awakening of my spirit. Okay, this is the time right now to give her these letters. And I said, "Hold on a second." And I went to my room, I got the letters, and I came back, and I gave them to her, and it was great. It was great. Like, you know, everything happened exactly the way it was supposed to. Because I let go, I let this program take effect without me, but completely through me. And, you know, that's another one. Like, let's see, I guess it was a couple weeks ago. You know, I'm always, I don't know, probably shouldn't say that, but anyway, I go to meetings all over the place, and sometimes I go out to eat with people, and you know, I develop relationships here and there, and like, you know, I know a lot of people and whatever. I'm trying to talk about me, okay? That's what I'm trying to do. So I'm sitting at the table, and it was right after a lady had celebrated numerous decades, and, you know, a lovely program to see that happen. And so we're sitting there at the table. Well, actually, no. I sat down at the table. And some things happened, and like, I was not okay with what just happened. I was kind of upset. I'm like, okay, let me show you what I can do. And man, my attitude changed, my behavior changed, and I was not in control. And I did some shit for about 30 minutes. And I didn't like the person that I was. Like, after it happened, like, man, like, that's the fucked up Rodney right there. And I was not okay with that. And it hurt to realize how quick that switch flipped. And I was, you know, it wasn't exactly just the things that I was sitting there doing. It was what was going on up here. You know? It was that attitude change that said, okay, I'll show you what I can do. I'll show you how manipulative I can be. I'll show you how controlling I can be. I'll change your feelings. And if I don't, I will continue until I do change your feelings. You just sit there and wait and watch. Because that's all you can do right now. That's how powerful that little fucker in my head talks to me. You know? And I think everybody can identify with that crap. You know, I'm probably going to have to make an amend, you know, but I know. I mean, for right now, you know, I'm just doing everything I need to do to get through today, man. You know, I love going to the East Coast and seeing a sunrise. You know, and I was sitting out there this morning watching the sunrise, and I'm like, them fuckers on the West Coast can't see this shit. Man, I'm like, what's wrong with me? Well, why can't I wish the best for everybody all the time? I guess because I'm just, I'm a human being that's an addict that can't understand that I can't have it all the time, and like I want it all the time. You know, this is a beautiful program. If you're new, I mean, and it doesn't seem like it's right, it's okay. It's probably not, and it might be, but keep coming back because it will get better. I promise you that. It's done it for me. I want to read one thing that is one of the most profound things that is in the basic text that that I have, and it helps me every time I read it, and it's really short, and it's in the 6th edition, it's in the preface to the 1st edition, and the 5th edition is just in the preface. And it's the very first little sentence, is the full fruit of the labor of love lives in the harvest. And that always comes in its right season. You know, I'm always going to be exactly where I need to be. And I need to stay working the steps. I need to stay living the principles in the steps. Everything that's going to go on in my life is going to happen for a reason, and I'm going to be right where I need to be to handle that. And that's just like what has happened to me so far. It seems like for the last 3.5 months of this year, like so much reality, because it's just me. It's just where I'm at in my recovery, you know, and I'm really thankful that I have stuck around long enough to get a sponsor that knows me better than me, to have a network of people that I can call. Like, I have hundreds of numbers in my phone of people in Narcotics Anonymous that I can call now. They're not all going to answer, I can tell you that. But I know the ones that will, and I can call them immediately, and I know they're going to answer, you know. It's a Just for Today program, and I got to keep it simple. I got to keep me honest, and I got to make sure my attitude stays within the parameters of surrender and humility, and I'm going to be okay. If you're new, just keep coming back. If you're not new, you've been here for a long time, keep coming back too. Because if you got here, you're supposed to be here, and you're supposed to be here for the rest of your life. Promise you that. But that's not for me. My recovery is my responsibility. Your recovery is yours. And no matter where you live, what you do, if you live this program, you'll find your own awakening in the spirit. And it'll be only for you to understand how beautiful it is for yourself. I can sit here and tell you all about mine, but the beauty lies within me and what I feel and how profound it is for me in my life, because I knew what I was. I know what I am today, but I don't know what I'm going to be tomorrow. So y'all can only figure that out for yourselves. I figured it out for me. And I love you. And I say that because I mean that. I don't just say it. And you can stay clean another day. I can stay clean another day. And that's all I got. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've got some